Valerie, as Tim Gunn would say, you can make it work. After your 2 successful runs on the hit designer shows Project Runway and Project Runway All-Stars, you came back to Cleveland to start your own ethical and sustainable handmade clothing company, creating garments that are made to last a lifetime, therefore reducing fashion waste. You not only hire local women paying fair living wages, but you are a dedicated mentor to countless other small business owners in Cleveland, particularly minority-owned businesses.
Correct.
Now, over the course of your career, you've had the opportunity to work with many unique businesses. What is your most favorite or most memorable experience?
I mean, there really is such a plethora of unique businesses in Cleveland. There's a lot of really great food brands, a lot of really great handmade brands. I would have to say probably one of my favorite collaborations has probably been with Saida Farrell. She is the owner of Edible Opus. I think she's now called the Marshmallow of the Month Club. But she was actually one of my mentees. She has a Black-owned business. And yeah, she's a really great go-getter. And her products are amazing. Like I'm not a big marshmallow person, but her marshmallows are incredible. They're literally like sugary clouds of air. And yeah, we collaborated on a couple of small events. Whenever we had our little in-studio shopping events, she would provide small goods for our bags, and they never disappointed. And it was just always so easy to communicate with her. She was super accommodating when it came to price and quantity and delivery. And yeah, I just really enjoyed working with her.
What is the most valuable lesson you learned from her as a small business owner, would you say?
I would say the biggest thing I learned from her, I think as a mentor, was just she really kept me on my toes in terms of if I'm going to be teaching someone about business or certain technique and actionable steps and fundamentals, I really have to know what I'm talking about. So I think she really just taught me that you're always learning at any stage in your business. I think as a business collaborator, what I learned from Saida was that it's always better to work in groups. I think oftentimes as a small business owner, it's very easy to be, to kind of work alone in your little silos, and it's easy to get distracted by the busyness of the day-to-day and forget that really, I think moving up a ladder, you can go farther in groups and together with others. And so it's really nice to learn that from someone like her who is, she's new to small business in a way, but she's growing at lightning speed, and I think she picks up things really fast, and it's been an inspiration to see her grow and also to get to work with her because her product is quality and it's not lost on our clients either.
Absolutely, and Cleveland-based.
Right, mm-hmm. Yep.
What was one of the biggest obstacles you've had to overcome in your career, and how has that shaped your perspective now today?
I would say one of the biggest obstacles for me, and I think this is true for a lot of women in business, is just finances. Finances are a harsh reality, and I think for creative entrepreneurs, we have so many ideas. The hardest part is learning how to know which ideas to execute and which ones to leave on the back burner and which ones to completely just leave on the cutting room floor. And it's a really difficult decision, especially when it's something that you're creating yourself and you've put a lot of heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into. Being able to access the funds to execute these ideas, it's no small feat. And I think sometimes it's a misconception by anyone that's new to the small business world or new to being an entrepreneur. They assume that the grass is always greener, right? So they probably, if they're kind of dredging through their day in their 9 to 5 and they have these visions of being their own boss, setting their own hours, making lots of money as a small business owner, there is a glamorous side to it, but it's also really difficult. So I think for me, being able to, just really build my business slowly so that I can keep my debt 0 to none, and so that I can build my business on the profit and the return that I build into it. That's been the biggest challenge and obstacle for me. But I think more than anything, I really learned the importance of operating as lean as you can until you can't, and doing as much as you can on your own until you're able to justify and afford hiring out. And once you do, then it's really just all about delegation. But yeah, finances are a harsh reality, not just for myself, but I think for a lot of women in business.
Now, you studied at the Cleveland Institute of Art.
Correct.
Did you take any business classes there, or is your business experience all from you starting your own business? And maybe along the way, what were some kind of business lessons you learned that maybe they didn't touch on in school? Yeah,
so CIA is a great institution, but they do not teach any business classes, at least not when I was there in attendance back in like 2005. They may now. They've definitely upgraded a lot of their systems and their facilities, and they've got state-of-the-art everything. But yeah, most art schools are kind of notorious for not teaching a really good business focused course or a set of courses for their graduates. And I think that's really where they're missing an opportunity, because a lot of artists, they assume that they're going to be able to get by on, the uniqueness and the mystery and the charm of their talents, but the real world just isn't so accommodating, And so, I think for me personally, I really learned everything I did about my business, by the seat of my pants. It really was trial by fire. And I just learned it all through trial and error. I learned it all by, really surrounding myself with people that I trusted that were wise. I made sure to, do my best to find a really great accountant, to find a really good lawyer. I did my due diligence in really, really just setting myself up for success by treating my clients not just like clients, but like people that I'd want to know for a long time. And then by doing that, they became friends, and then when they became friends, they also became invested in my mission and what I was doing. So I think that really helped me to be able to succeed a little bit more in ways that maybe others haven't or been able to. So yeah, I think, learning it kind of in the streets, I guess, or as you go it's not easy, but you learn very quickly what not to do and what pitfalls to avoid and really how to cling to the people that you can trust.
What is one thing you would have done differently in your career if you had the chance to do so?
For me, maybe the biggest thing would have been to really reassess whether or not I wanted to go into retail before we really pursued e-commerce. I just think that no one really could have predicted how vast and how quickly Amazon and the internet and Shopify would have grown. And I think that's maybe where I wish I had had a little more insight into that, because while I really enjoyed the time that I was at a brick and mortar and I had a storefront and we were right on the corner in Gordon Square. We really made a lot of great connections and we became, I think, a really great hub for the community. But I really think that I could have built my business faster and stronger had I maybe focused more on e-commerce and digital platforms, so that I could have been ahead of the curve, or at least like on the cusp of what was really burgeoning. And I think now, we definitely are pursuing that more fervently and with a lot more tools under our belt. But I can't help but wonder if we're maybe a little bit behind in some things because we just kind of arrived late to the party. And I think it's because we spent a lot of time really just positioning ourselves as a staple brick and mortar on the corner. We were an anchor tenant, and we were spending a lot of time keeping our storefront up and maintaining the space and really selling direct that way to only our Cleveland clientele, instead of looking outside of just Ohio and really seeing what else the rest of the country had for us. And so I think that's probably a mistake we made. Obviously, once you learn from your mistakes, right? So you can always course correct. But yeah, we've done our best to be able to figure out ways that we can, kind of get that time back or be able to make up for lost time in a way.
Now, did COVID kind of speed that up, or was this pre-COVID more looking into e-commerce?
Oh yeah, definitely. COVID really sped that up for us. I mean, before COVID, even though we weren't really in the brick and mortar business model as much, I mean, we have a studio and a showroom that we really focus on taking appointments when we can, and then the rest was e-commerce. But we did do a lot of retail and trade shows, and for those we were traveling across the country. I mean, DC and Chicago and St. Paul and California sometimes. And while it was lucrative, it was very labor intensive, and it just wasn't sustainable long term, especially for me because I have 2 small children and I was gone every weekend. And so COVID, thankfully or not, it kind of forced us. All of our retail events were canceled. All of our trade shows were canceled for about 2 years. It wasn't really till this year that most of them were reinstated. But because of COVID, we really had no choice but to make the best of a bad situation. And we had a lot more time on our hands to really invest into digital marketing and to upgrading our website and to creating a better user experience and just really focusing on the things that we didn't have time for before because we were so busy traveling. So yeah, I would say COVID definitely was a catalyst, and I'm thankful for that. But now I think the challenge is really being able to stand out in a sea of, the fashion industry is definitely, I would say, a red ocean, which like in business terms, there's like a lot of blood in the water, right? There's hardly any sharks swimming in a clear blue ocean. We're full of lots of sharks that are just like clamoring for all the, the fresh meat. And so I think that now is our next biggest challenge is learning and figuring out new ways that we can really stand out among our competitors and ways that we can grab our clientele and keep our current clientele interested and loyal.
How has Cleveland's business community and organizations like ACG Cleveland impacted your career, and what have you found, what kind of value have you found in those communities here in Cleveland?
We've been really lucky to encounter a lot of small organizations and women-led organizations here in Cleveland that have made a huge impact on our business. I mean, ACG is definitely probably way up there as our top 5. When I first met Trisha Balzer and Beth Haas from ACG through WIT, it was I think 2016, and I was like still pregnant with my first child. And yeah, I think for us at that point in our brand history and career, we hadn't really, I think, honed in on our target client and who the YC woman was. And I think we did like one small runway show with them, and then we had a pop-up shop. And after that evening, I really knew who our client was. We, without a doubt, knew that the ACG woman, the WIT woman, was our client. She was, powerhouse. She was proficient in her career. She was, really confident, strong, professional working woman who also had a vested interest in her community, who was also vested in, volunteer opportunities and just really giving back and supporting initiatives like ours. And so I think for us, that was really like a huge turning point for our brand, because then we really were able to zero in on our marketing efforts. We were able to zero in on the way we design and who we design for. We were able to really kind of laser focus on who our client was, what they need, and how we could reach them. And it really all came from that first event that we did with ACG. And ever since then, we've just been really pursuing that client because we know that they need our product, they love our product, and we have the right fit to serve them. So it's really been cool being able to use that as a springboard to find other small organizations that are kind of similar, that also really, fit our target demographic that we can serve in the best way.
So for you, who was one of your mentors, and do you recall an impactful piece of advice or experience, whether that be personally or professionally, that has shaped your career or perspective on life?
I would say one of my biggest mentors and most notable is Lisa Luciana. I worked for her for about 8 years. I was her nanny actually before I started my business. It was, I believe, in like 2005 to 2013 or 2012. She has a huge family. She has 8 kids. 5 dogs, and they lived in Independence, and she was just a really unique woman. So her family, they owned Kurtz Brothers, and she worked for her family business, but she was just really kind of a whiz when it came to business acumen and just kind of knowing the right next steps and the right moves. And she wasn't just a mentor. I think for me, she was really like my champion. She was just super encouraging of like every step of my process, even before I started my business, when I was kind of still learning pattern making and I was making my first garments ever. She would sometimes let me work on them whenever the kids were sleeping or whenever everything was done at the house. She would let me hang out because they had a pretty large house, and she would just kind of let me hang out. And then anytime she saw a new piece that I was working on, she was just always like that proud parent that was like, wow, this is incredible. You should really pursue this and you should really do something with this. And had it really not been for her urging and her constant, just confidence boosting, I don't think I would have ventured out to try. I really was just learning pattern making and fashion design as a backup, right? I was an illustrator, so I was like, I'm content with waiting tables and doing freelance work and making what I can on the side. But she really encouraged me to think bigger in ways that I really had never thought of for myself. And then when the time came to actually start my business, she was right there alongside me, like helping me file my vendor's license, helping me try to find a good accountant, helping me to understand, how to, incorporate my business and all the things that I could do as a new entrepreneur that really there was no handbook for. My parents, weren't really in my life at the time. I don't have any family out here, and she was my family. And, her family was always so supportive, and she has a large family. I mean, she had, I believe, like 8 brothers and sisters herself, and then her husband had 7, and then they all had kids. They were Irish Catholic, so they had a huge family. And they were just always there to support at every step and every turn. And I really think that I was lucky to have her. And unfortunately, she passed away in 2012. She had PMP cancer, and it was just a unique time because it was right around the time where my business was really growing and I was starting to thrive. And it was right after I had been on Project Runway for only a few years, and she was just, she was a huge part of my life that I don't think I could ever replicate. And I would say aside from someone like Lisa, who was close to me in my life, Jumpstart has been a huge help to me in my growth and understanding my business overall. I went through the Impact program in 2017, and then I was assigned 2 mentors after that. And so I've had a handful of mentors that they've rotated in and out, but I would say most of the mentors I've had from there, Aaron Slater, Greg Carlin, Patty Ajudowitz, R.C. Petty, they've just been instrumental in really helping me to see beyond what I envisioned for myself. I think as a woman and as a minority woman and as an entrepreneur, it's very easy for us to think on a small scale because we just don't know any better. And if we don't have examples in front of us, it's really hard to dream big because you just assume this is the best I can do. And when you see someone else map it out for you, or you see someone else show you the others that have done it before you that look like you, it's a whole different ballgame. And when you have someone in your corner saying, yeah, I know this is scary, and yeah, there are these challenges, but you can totally do this, that really, I think, is what gets me up in the morning and helps me to really know that, yeah, I can do that. And I can hire someone and pay them a salary. And I can buy a commercial building, even though I don't have $1 million. And I can't, it's just all these little things that I really never thought I could do until I had someone who knew better in my corner saying, yeah, you can, just go for it, and it's really all about planning and taking the right steps.
Now, you mentioned earlier, at one point, maybe this was 15 years ago or so, you were waiting tables and doing some freelance work on the side. And I know you mentioned your mentor, Lisa, she kind of encouraged you to think bigger, but was there a specific aha moment where you're like, I'm made for more, I want to start my own business and do something really big? Was there something that flipped the switch, or just kind of her general influence in your ways of thinking?
So I started my business, or I was sewing and kind of making things maybe a year before I met Lisa. I hadn't started my business yet. I had just started a few pattern making classes at a small local school. I never finished the program because I couldn't afford to, but before I started the class, I was bartending at a restaurant in Little Italy, and at the time I was working at Beechwood Place, right at BCBG. It was a little department store, and so I had a really nice wardrobe because I got the employee discount, but I was still living off an art graduate's income, and so often I would get asked, because I was bartending there, and I always had to look really nice and sharp, and I could wear my own clothes instead of a uniform or some dinky tie, but oftentimes, a lot of the women that came to that restaurant would ask me oh my gosh, where'd you get that outfit? Or I love what you're wearing, or did you make that? And after a while, I just got really tired of saying no. And I had one client, a woman who approached me, and she asked me to make her a dress. And I decided to just fake it till I make it. I said, sure, I can make this dress for you. And so I gave her a quote. She said yes. I gave her some sketches. She approved them. And then I had to scramble to find someone to help me make it. And so we made the dress. She loved it, but she never finished paying us because she just the deal went awry somewhere, and I really don't know what happened. It was so long ago, but I remember feeling really upset about it because I worked so hard, but I couldn't sew the dress for her because I didn't know how to sew, and I was always so terrified of sewing machines for some weird reason. And so after that moment, I was like, you know what? I worked too dang hard to not be paid what I was owed, and my talent and my time was worth more than what she thought she deserved to give me. And so after that moment, I decided that I was going to learn everything I could myself, and I was going to teach myself what I couldn't learn from a school, and I was just going to do it because I had kind of pushed my desire to be in fashion for such a long time because I came from a really conservative Latin American family, and I just always figured I should just do what's expected of me. I should just do the bare minimum. I should just keep my head down and do the work and not complain and not wish for more, because you do that and it's just going to cause more stress or trouble. And, after a while, I just figured, I've always wanted to do it. No one's stopping me. I'm a whole grown woman. I should just do it. And so I did. And I signed up for a pattern making class. I took a few classes. I learned enough. And then I started making garments and just kind of was shooting from the hip.
Just do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
So outside of your professional career, you've dedicated significant time and energy to charitable activities. So what are some of your favorite parts about giving back to the community here in Cleveland, and how has that generosity impacted your life?
I would say probably my favorite parts about giving back where I can and when I can is just really knowing that you're not that you're making a difference, because that just sounds so cheesy and cliche, but I think the fact that you're actually doing something, you know, I think it's really easy for us to keep to ourselves and do our own thing and run our own race. But I think if we really take stock of who has helped us in our path along our lives and in our own journeys to success or to build our dreams and achieve our goals, I think we would find that we'd be able to count at least enough people on our hands and toes that have helped us. And so I think it's just really only fitting to pay it forward, to do unto others as, you know, you would want to have done to you. And so I really do think that it would be a waste of someone's time and talent if they have all these skills and they have all this knowledge and they have, you know, all this prowess and ability without sharing it. You know, like what's that? There's like an old adage, or I think it's even a Bible verse, right? Like that a joy shared is twice the joy, and a burden shared is half the burden. And so why not share those things with other people in your community and do what you can to move others forward? I think in some industries it's very easy to, you know, get caught up in the idea of competition, right? And trade secrets and not letting others, you know, surpass you because you've given away knowledge that maybe was invaluable to you only. But and of course, I'm not saying that companies and businesses should give away trade secrets, right? I understand that those exist for a reason, but I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with, you know, helping women or other entrepreneurs in your industry or in your category, because it can only strengthen that industry in your community, you know? So it would be silly of me not to want to work with other young fashion designers in Cleveland, because it would only help to strengthen the fashion community here in Cleveland. If I want to be, you know, the only game in town, well, then I'm just gonna be basically a lonely island, because, you know, New York wasn't made fashion mecca because there was one great designer only. It was made the fashion mecca because there are loads of great designers there, you know? So I think it would be in most business owners or entrepreneurs' best interest to share the wealth, you know? And I think that's, for me, the most rewarding part of it all, is knowing that, yeah, I'm helping other people, but I'm also helping, you know, contribute to the local economy that's only gonna benefit me as well. And so I think it's twofold for everyone.
So you were the first introduced to ACG via a partnership for one of our flagship events, the Great Lakes Capital Connection. When last hosted in Cleveland, you and your team put on a private runway show and pop-up shop for our Cleveland-based ACG network, Women in Transactions. How can the Cleveland ACG chapter better support the network of small businesses in Cleveland and their owners?
They were so supportive of me with that event. It'd be great if there was a way to replicate that on a recurring basis. You know, I think that the women with ACG and through that flagship event, they're women that, you know quality when they see it. I think that they are women that want to support the initiative and the mission of most small businesses, especially women and minority owned. So yeah, I think that if there was a way to have some kind of directory of local small businesses of note or minority women businesses that they can support, whether it's, you know, on a monthly basis or an ongoing basis, maybe having some kind of way to interact with those businesses throughout the year. I'm not sure what that would look like, but I would love to be a part of it. I would love to help materialize it. I mean, I think that could be something really unique in a way that could help serve the women of the WIT initiative, but also the women who are in business that can possibly have, you know, the products and the brands and these services that can serve this group of women best. And so it kind of, I think it'd be a really great synergy of, you know, business and consumer all in one, and then a way to support the local economy that would make the most sense. But yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that event to me?
Sure, yeah. So it was in 2016. I believe it was at the Calfee building. And we had just like a mini runway show of some pieces from a collection that I completed for our Hullabaloo event. We used to do an event every year. It was like our big runway extravaganza, and all the garments are typically one-off pieces. They're never made again, only once. And yeah, I think we showcased about 10 of those looks. We had some models, we had some, you know, they had passing hors d'oeuvres. And then afterwards we had, maybe for like 2 hours, we had a small pop-up shop with, I would say, the majority of what we offer in our ready-to-wear collection, which is, you know, trench coats, cardigans, tops and bottoms, really transitional pieces that you can wear in an everyday wardrobe, not just to work, but on the weekends, going out, on vacation, you know, just lots of places. So that way our clients aren't having to buy, you know, 10 different pieces for 4 different applications of their life. The food was wonderful, the company was wonderful. I think there was a Q&A, so we did a little bit of Q&A about my time on Project Runway and my business. But yeah, I think our biggest takeaway was that these women really loved what we had to offer, and I think it was really unique because, you know, they always say, like, as a small business, you need to know your audience, right? You need to be able to read the room, and, you know, you're not going to be selling hot chocolate, you know, on the beach, right? In the middle of summer, you're going to be selling lemonade, and so you really want to be where your client is, and I think that was just the best of both worlds for us. You know, we were able to feel appreciated and heard as artists and business owners, but also, you know, as creatives, and they not only were able to highlight us in a way that was special, but also by putting their money and voting with their dollars by buying our product. That was really unique, and yeah, it was a great event.
So over the course of your career, you've seen a lot of change. What do you see as the biggest change in the Cleveland business community from when you first started here?
I would say I think the biggest change is that there are definitely more opportunities for minority-owned businesses than there ever were before. And I do think that there is more support for businesses that aren't only in tech. I think, you know, before, even with Jumpstart, I was never able to really approach them for assistance or help or guidance because they were primarily focused on tech only. And as we know, the tech industry is kind of dominated by men. And so it just didn't seem like there was really a place for women in any kind of business. And there are a lot of women that have, you know, home-baked goods, and women that have sewn products, and women that make jewelry, and women that, you know, do things that are a little bit more typical of women-based industries. But there was really no place for them to really have true support. And so I think we've seen a shift in that in terms of funding, in terms of mentorship, in terms of guidance, in terms of access to resources. And I think that's really unique and special. And I'm glad that it's happening now, but I really wish it happened sooner, because I think that even our business could be further along in its growth and development had there been more of that back when I started in 2009. But yeah, I think that people are starting to open up and realize that not only are more women making greater change when it comes to the world of business, but they are a large, if not the largest portion of consumers and demographics when it comes to, you know, most handmade or home goods. And so I think it's interesting to see the difference between how, and this isn't like a competition or a pissing match or anything, but it's just interesting to see how when it comes to wealth and the division of wealth among others, women are more likely to contribute and to donate more to nonprofits and to spread their wealth than men are. Men are more likely to hoard their wealth and to invest in other places, but women are more likely to invest where it really counts. And I think that's important to note, because if we've wondered maybe why the business world hasn't advanced as much as it could be for being the year 2022, it may be because there aren't enough women with a seat at the table where it really matters. And what I'm seeing and what I'm hoping is that's shifting. And I think more women are being able to envision themselves in positions of power and positions of influence where they knew they couldn't before, myself included.
What advice do you have for the next generation of young professionals as they take on their careers?
You know, I would say the biggest piece of advice I ever got was to not grow too fast. It's very easy, especially in, you know, today's age of just nonstop media and nonstop visuals of where everyone's at. And, you know, I think it's an economy of instant gratification. And so I think the number one rule is to really do your homework, you know, do your due diligence, do your research, and just take your time in building your brand. You know, nothing is built overnight. I mean, a lot of people, you know, watch these reality television. I mean, there's a reality television show for everything now. You know, you blown glass and, you know, blacksmithing and making crafts and, you know, I mean, just everything. And so I think it's easy for people to assume that a lot of people in these new businesses or these creative ventures are just, you know, exploding overnight because they went viral on TikTok, you know, or because, you know, one celebrity posted about them on Instagram. But I don't think it's wise to chase after those healthy or those unhealthy, hollow opportunities. What's really important is trying to build a solid brand with a good product, with honest customer service behind it and a good team. And I think if you make the right connections, you meet the right people, you make smart decisions with your money, then you'll go far. You know, what is it? They always say, like, be kind and work hard, right? I know it sounds so cheesy. It's a very like mom thing to say, but it's true. You know, the more bridges you burn, the more you're going to kind of shoot yourself in the foot. But the more, you know, when you're going to an investor or you're going to a business meeting or you're going to, you know, try to hit someone up for advice on what next steps to take with your industry, the best thing you can do is offer more of yourself first. You know, don't go into it expecting or asking for what it is you can get from it, but before you go to a meeting, ask them, like, instead of saying, hey, can I pick your brain and buy you a coffee? Like say, hey, what's your consulting fee? Are you taking on new clients? What can I pay you for your time? Offer of yourself first before you're taking from others, because that's the best way, I think, to really grow. And then you're actually, putting an investment behind quality information and quality contacts. And I think people will see that and they'll take note. And they may not take you up on paying them for consulting. They'll say, oh, you know what, the first hour is free, or come to my class and you can sit in and audit. I mean, you really just never know until you ask. But I think that's the best advice I can give, is to take your time, build it slowly, but be smart, be wise, and be kind.
Where do you see your business markets going in the future? So you talked about a little bit of the move toward e-commerce, but maybe on a bigger scale, next 10, 20 years, where do you see the fashion industry and specifically what you do?
I definitely see a lot more in the fashion industry shifting towards sustainability. I mean, it's definitely been a buzzword for the last 5 or 7 years, but it's not really been enacted on in a way that's really impacting or making a dent in the pollution or the negative side of fashion. But we have been seeing a lot of trends when it comes to secondhand and thrift. They are doubling in size in the next 5 years, which is good, but I think a lot of people are forgetting the downside of that. The reason thrift and secondhand are growing is because consumers are still consuming at really rapid rates. So something's gonna have to give, the dam is gonna break at some point. And I hope that brands like H&M and Forever 21 and Revolve and Lulu, I think that hopefully they'll be put to the test and they'll be held to task for the things that they're currently doing. And my hope is that Instagram influencers will also start to see the impact of their decisions. If they're doing Shein hauls and all these major massive shopping unboxing videos of things that they're probably not even going to wear. My hope is that they'll start to see a shift in how that's no longer cool. Like those things are kind of starting to trend out, right? And so my hope is that even H&M now, I think they're being put to the fire a little bit for claiming that they were a sustainable business. They were offering, I think, a percentage for people to bring their old H&M stuff, and then they would get a credit towards new H&M stuff, but they would end up just really not even recycling those pieces. They would just take in the landfill. And so there are some new laws in place now that are requiring them to prove that they are actually sustainable, and if not, then they have to pay a fine. And so now they're not putting those guarantees or those claims on their advertising or on their branding because they can't effectively and truthfully make them. So the good thing is that I think with all the initiatives that are being pressed, towards climate change and towards sustainability, those things are now trickling into the fashion industry. And so my hope is that a lot more people will maybe catch on to what slow fashion is compared to fast fashion, how they can help, what they can do, how they can do their part, and I think that that's going to start forcing a lot of designers and brands, even like ours, to rethink how we do business and how we make and sell our products and what textiles we use, and hopefully, just like organic food became more accessible and more approachable and less expensive, my hope is that organic textiles will become more prevalent, they will be more accessible, they will be less difficult to obtain for small designers like us to really use more effectively and more often. So yeah, I'm hopeful for that, but I think it's going to be at least another 20, 30 years before there's any real change.
Do you have any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Someone once told me that if you stay in the same place for 20 years and do the same thing, that you'll be successful. And I've been in Cleveland for 20 years now. I've been in business since 2009, so I think I have like 6 more years to go before I hit that cap. But I would say, they're not wrong. I really believe in the power and the impact of doing something well and doing good by doing well, or doing well by doing good. And I think that that's really been at the crux of what Yellow Cake is about and what we do and why we do it. And we might not be millionaires yet, but I think that by involving ourselves with our community, by making a concerted effort to be a responsible, honest brand, by really taking the time to make our clients feel special and unique and taken care of, and by assembling a team of garment workers and employees that we know are the ones that we trust the most with our product and the ones that are in need. We really prioritize hiring minority women first if we can. I think by doing those things, they all add up to really contribute to the vibrancy of our community. And so I think working hard and doing the best you can, and being yourself, as silly and as schoolhouse rock as that sounds, like it really is kind of the fundamental of doing good business. And I think a lot of times in a lot of movies you'll see, these sharks and these like wolves in business kind of, doing whatever it takes to get by or to make a buck. And I think people are often always saying, oh, well, it's just business, but they say it as if like business can be separated somehow from life, or like when people say, oh, it's just politics. Like sometimes politics are the moral compass or the way that you live your life. So I think if you're living your life in business like this sneaky, greedy rat, but you're trying to live your personal life like this, benevolent, altruistic saint, it's like oil and water. The two can't mix. Like I think you really need to live your business life the way you live your personal life. And I think that's really where you can find the most success. So, just do you and just be yourself and work hard and be kind. And that's really, I think, the most basic, fundamental Mr. Rogers advice I could give anyone.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.